The Boston Mafia king never saw her until another man made her laugh. For 11 months, Harper Quinn sat 10 feet outside Adrian Vale's office fixing the problems no one else could solve, and loving a man who barely looked up when she entered the room. She knew his coffee order, his silences, and the dangerous way powerful men lowered their voices when they said his name. Then, on a rain-soaked morning above Boston Harbor, another man brought her coffee. He remembered what Adrian never asked, and when Harper laughed warm and unguarded, Adrian opened his office door and looked at her as if he had just discovered the one thing in his empire he could not afford to lose. This story is not only about obsession. It is about what happens when being seen becomes more dangerous than being invisible. Stay until the end and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Like the video if you believe some people notice your worth only when someone else does first. But that laugh had not begun on the rain-soaked morning when Adrian Vale finally opened his office door and saw Harper Quinn. It had begun 48 hours earlier before another man carried coffee onto the executive floor, before jealousy cracked Adrian's perfect control, and before Harper understood how dangerous it could be to become visible to a man like him. On Monday morning, Boston was still dark when Harper stepped out of the subway station near the harbor. Cold wind rushed between the towers of the Seaport District, carrying the smell of salt water, wet pavement, and diesel from the trucks moving toward the docks. The sky above the city was the color of steel. Streetlights reflected across the rain-slick sidewalk, turning every shallow puddle into broken gold. Harper pulled her navy coat tighter around herself and hurried toward the glass building at the end of the block. Vale Harbor Group occupied 42 floors of polished stone-smoked glass and expensive silence. Its name stood above the entrance in silver letters large enough to be seen from the opposite side of the avenue. Most people in Boston knew Vale Harbor as a transportation and infrastructure company. It owned freight terminals, warehouses, construction contracts, and private security firms across Massachusetts. The people who worked near the waterfront knew something else. They knew cargo moved faster when Adrian Vale wanted it moved. They knew union disputes ended when his representatives entered the room. They knew men who challenged his control sometimes changed their minds before sunrise. No one explained why. No one needed to. The security guard in the lobby looked up as Harper approached the turnstile. "Morning, Ms. Quinn. Morning, Walter. You beat the sun again. The sun has better working hours." Walter smiled and scanned her badge. Her photograph appeared on the screen beside her title. Harper Quinn, Executive Operations Coordinator. The title sounded important enough to impress strangers. In practice, it meant she answered questions no one else wanted, corrected mistakes no one admitted making, and kept Adrian Vale's professional life from collapsing beneath the weight of his own expectations. The elevator carried her upward through 40 floors of darkness. Harper stood alone beneath the soft ceiling lights holding a canvas work bag with a broken zipper. The bag had belonged to her since college. One strap was beginning to fray, but replacing it felt wasteful when it still carried everything she needed. At the 42nd floor, the doors opened onto an empty reception area. The executive level looked less like an office than the private wing of a museum. Gray stone floors, black walls, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. Furniture selected for appearance rather than comfort. No family photographs stood on any desk. No personal decorations softened the rooms. Everything reflected Adrian Vale. Controlled, elegant, untouchable. Harper switched on the lights and removed her coat. It was 6:23. Adrian would arrive at 8:55. She had 2 hours and 32 minutes to repair the day before he saw it. She entered his office without knocking. No one else in the company would have dared. The room stretched across the eastern side of the building with dark wood walls and windows facing the water. A long table stood near the glass. 3 neat stacks of documents waited on Adrian's desk. A cup of coffee from the previous evening sat untouched beside them. Harper lifted the cup and frowned. cold. Again. Adrian ordered coffee constantly and forgot to drink it with equal consistency. He treated food as an interruption and sleep as a weakness that could be negotiated. Harper carried the cup into the private kitchen, replaced it with fresh coffee, and returned to his desk. She opened her tablet. The first problem was waiting in his calendar. A waterfront union representative had requested an emergency meeting at 9:30. A state senator wanted a private call at the same time. A board member had scheduled a financial review for 10, although Adrian was expected at the federal courthouse across town at 10:15. Harper stared at the screen. "Of course," she murmured. She moved the senator's call to 8:30 and arranged for it to take place from Adrian's car. She persuaded the board member's assistant to delay the financial review by 24 hours. She transferred the union meeting to a secure conference room near the courthouse and sent the legal team an updated schedule before any of them reached the building. Then she checked the port reports. At 7:12, she found the first real problem. 6 cargo identification numbers appeared twice on a shipping manifest from Gloucester. Harper leaned closer to the screen. The numbers were attached to medical equipment scheduled to leave Massachusetts that afternoon. According to the primary database, the containers had already passed inspection. According to the customs file, those same containers were still waiting to be cleared. She opened a third system. The records did not match. Harper reached for the phone. A man answered after the fourth ring. "Gloucester Operations. This is Harper Quinn from the executive office. I need you to freeze shipment HG741. A pause followed. "Who Harper Quinn?" "Vale Harbor Group. I heard your name. I'm asking why an executive assistant is giving instructions to my port." Harper looked through the windows at the dark water below. "My title is Executive Operations Coordinator." "Congratulations. 6 containers are duplicated across 3 systems. Their destination codes were changed at 2:14 this morning. That sounds like a clerical error. Clerical errors do not update access credentials." The man sighed. "Send it to accounting. Accounting approved the manifest yesterday. Then there is no problem." Harper clicked through the access log. The name attached to the change belonged to an employee who had resigned 4 months earlier. Her pulse quickened. "There is a problem," she said. "The system accepted a dead credential." The man stopped speaking. Harper forwarded the report. "Freeze the shipment. Do not move those containers until security confirms the original destination. I need authorization from someone above you." Harper looked toward Adrian's empty office. "You can wait for Mr. Vale to arrive and explain why 6 containers disappeared while you were asking about my job title." Silence. Then the sound of a keyboard. "The shipment is frozen. Thank you." Harper ended the call and sent the records to corporate security. She expected a response within the hour. Instead, someone appeared beside her desk 12 minutes later. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a dark sweater beneath a security badge. His brown hair looked as though he had run a hand through it several times on the elevator. He held Harper's report. "Are you Ms. Quinn?" She glanced at his badge. "Ethan Cole, Security Systems Analyst." "That depends. Are you here to tell me I misunderstood the data? No. I'm here to ask how you found something my department missed." Harper turned her screen toward him. The container numbers appeared twice. Ethan leaned over the desk. His expression changed as he read. "You checked 3 systems. The first 2 disagreed. So you checked the access logs. The second system required an employee credential." Ethan looked at her. "You did all this before 7:30. Harper glanced at the clock. "It is 7:34. That makes it much more reasonable." She almost smiled. Ethan pulled a chair closer. Unlike the executives who usually spoke to Harper, he did not stand over her desk while waiting for an answer. He sat beside her, studied the screen, and listened as she explained each inconsistency. The duplicated credential belonged to a temporary systems contractor named Derek Shaw. According to company records, Shaw had completed 3 projects for Vale Harbor over the previous year. One involved the Gloucester terminal. Another involved headquarters. The third involved security renovations at Adrian Vale's private residence in Beacon Hill. Ethan's easy expression disappeared. "Do not send this to anyone else yet." Harper looked at him. "I already sent it to your department." "I know. Why should I stop now?" "Because if someone cloned this credential, we do not know who has access to the report." He lowered his voice. "Forward. Everything directly to me and Miles Bennett." Harper knew Miles by reputation. He was Adrian's chief of security and one of the few people who could enter Adrian's office without being announced. "Is this connected to something larger?" Ethan hesitated. "That is what I'm going to find out." Harper watched him stand. Most men in the building dismissed her the moment they saw the title beneath her name. Ethan had arrived expecting an explanation and stayed long enough to hear it. At the elevator, he looked back. "You caught this before security did. I caught 6 duplicated numbers. You caught someone inside our system. It could still be an error." Ethan pressed the elevator button. "You always work this hard to avoid taking credit." Harper did not answer. The doors opened behind him. "I owe you coffee," he said. "You do not." "I definitely do." "What do you drink?" Harper looked down at the unfinished tea beside her keyboard. Her first instinct was to refuse. It was the same instinct that made her say she was not hungry when someone offered food. The same instinct that made her tell her mother missed dinners did not matter. Accepting something created the possibility of being disappointed when it disappeared. Ethan waited without pushing. "Maple oat latte," she said at last. "1 shot." "No foam." Harper glanced up. "No foam. I'll remember." He stepped into the elevator. The doors closed. Harper returned to work. By 8:15, the executive floor had begun to fill. Assistants hurried between conference rooms. Phones rang. Men in dark suits carried folders with confidential stamps. A nervous junior attorney stood near the reception desk rehearsing the first sentence he planned to say to Adrian. At 8:54, every conversation grew quieter. Adrian Vale had entered the building. Harper knew before the elevator doors opened. The change was almost physical. Shoulders straightened. Screens changed. People who had been laughing moments earlier lowered their eyes. The elevator opened at exactly 8:55. Adrian stepped onto the floor with Miles Bennett at his side. He wore a charcoal suit and a black overcoat dotted with rain. His dark hair was brushed away from his forehead. A thin scar cut through one eyebrow, pale against his skin. Adrian was not the tallest man in the building, but every room seemed to adjust around him. He did not hurry. He did not look left or right. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never been required to explain why he belonged anywhere. Harper rose. "Good morning, Mr. Vale." Senator Callahan moved his call to 8:30. "The board review is tomorrow. The Carver Union meeting will take place in Conference Room 4 near the courthouse." Adrian removed his gloves. "The Gloucester shipment." Harper stopped. He knew. "I froze it at 7:19. Why 6 container numbers were duplicated. A former contractor's credential was used to alter their destination." Adrian's eyes settled on her face. For 1 second, Harper felt the full weight of his attention. Then Miles handed him a folder. Adrian looked away. "Security is reviewing it. I sent the access records to Mr. Cole." "I know." He placed his gloves on her desk. "Move the union briefing to the top of the file." Harper waited. She did not expect praise. Adrian rarely praised anyone. Still, some small and foolish part of her had hoped he might acknowledge that she had prevented a major loss before most employees arrived for work. He opened his office door. "Page 17 of the courthouse report is wrong," he said. "Fix it." Then he disappeared inside. Harper looked at the closed door. Her disappointment lasted less than 3 seconds. She sat down, opened the report, and found the mistake. That was how she survived Adrian Vale. She never allowed herself to expect what he had never promised to give. At 11:40, Harper carried revised documents into the main conference room. 3 company executives sat around the table. Adrian stood at the windows with a phone pressed to his ear. A construction manager was attempting to explain a safety violation at one of Vale Harbor's warehouses. The inspector misunderstood the procedure the manager said. Adrian ended the call and turned. Did the inspector misunderstand the missing railings? The manager shifted in his chair. The installation was delayed. Were employees working on the platform? Yes, but they were instructed to stay clear of the edge. Adrian walked toward the table. He placed a single photograph in front of the manager. The image showed a worker standing 3 floors above the ground beside an open drop. Tell his wife he was instructed to stay clear of the edge. The man's face lost color. No one was hurt. That is the reason you are still employed. Adrian's voice never rose. Close the warehouse. Install the railings. Pay every worker for the lost hours. If anyone is ordered onto that platform before it passes inspection, you will never manage another project in this state. The manager swallowed. Yes, sir. Adrian turned toward Harper. The union documents. She handed him the folder. His fingers brushed hers for less than a second. The contact was ordinary. Her reaction was not. Heat moved through her hand and climbed toward her wrist. Adrian opened the folder without noticing. Or perhaps he noticed and chose not to show it. With Adrian, Harper could never be certain. That uncertainty had begun during her first week at Vale Harbor. 11 months earlier, the company had hosted a charity event for the families of injured dock workers. The ballroom had been filled with politicians, executives, cameras, and glasses of champagne no one finished. Harper had been carrying donation envelopes to the accounting table when she noticed a little girl crying behind a curtain. The child could not have been older than 7. Before Harper reached her, Adrian appeared from the opposite side of the room. He removed his coat and crouched several feet away. Are you lost? He asked. The girl covered her face. Adrian did not touch her. He sat on the floor in a suit that probably cost more than Harper's monthly rent and pulled a pen from his pocket. On the back of a donation card, he drew an animal with 4 uneven legs and ears shaped like triangles. The girl peeked through her fingers. What is that, a dog? It looks like a horse. Adrian studied the drawing. It has been a difficult day for him. The child laughed. Only then did Adrian offer his hand. He found her father near the service entrance. The man had injured his back in a loading accident and looked terrified that he would lose his apartment before returning to work. Later that evening, Harper overheard Adrian speaking to an accountant. Pay the medical balance through the charity fund NUM. The company will cover it. Should we issue a statement? Adrian's expression had turned cold. If my name appears anywhere near it, you will be looking for another job. He had walked away before seeing Harper in the hallway. That was the moment she began watching him differently. Not because he was handsome, although he was. Not because he was powerful, although power followed him like a second shadow. She fell for the contradiction. The man who frightened entire rooms had sat on the floor to make a lost child smile. The man who controlled half the harbor had helped a family and demanded no one know. Harper had spent 11 months collecting small pieces of him. The way he moved meetings to lower floors during thunderstorms because he knew she disliked elevators in bad weather. The humidifier that appeared beside her desk after she developed a cough. The immediate approval of every vacation request she submitted, even when he delayed requests from senior executives for weeks. Adrian never mentioned these things. Harper told herself they meant nothing. It was safer that way. At 1:15, she carried her lunch into an empty conference room and called her mother. Her mother answered on the 3rd ring. Harper, honey, I only have 10 minutes. I know. I wanted to hear your voice. You sound tired. I'm fine. You always say that. Harper looked through the glass wall. Adrian crossed the executive floor with 2 attorneys following him. Employees stepped out of his path before he reached them. Her mother sighed. I am sorry about your birthday. You were working. I should have called earlier. You called. At almost midnight, it still counted. Harper. She recognized the tone. Her mother had used it when Harper was a child and pretended she did not mind eating dinner alone. When she said she did not need a new winter coat. When she told teachers she had forgotten about parent conferences because admitting the truth felt disloyal. Her mother's voice softened. Does that boss of yours appreciate you? Harper watched Adrian stop beside her empty desk. He looked at the unfinished cup of tea, then at the dark conference room where she sat. For a moment, their eyes met through the glass. He depends on me, Harper said. Her mother was silent. That is not the same thing. Adrian moved on. Harper lowered her gaze. I have to go. You just called. I know. I have another meeting. Are you coming home this weekend? I'll try. Do more than try. Harper smiled faintly. I love you. I love you too. The call ended. Harper remained at the table for another minute, listening to the muted movement beyond the glass. Then she returned to her desk and worked until the sky outside turned black. At 8:12 that evening, only 3 offices remained lit. Adrian stood near the windows with Miles. Harper could not hear their conversation, but she could see the file open between them. It contained photographs of the Gloucester terminal security maps and the face of a man she did not recognize. Nolan Rourke. The name appeared beneath the photograph. Miles closed the blinds. Inside the office, he placed another image on Adrian's desk. It showed Pier 12, the deepest cargo terminal on Boston's eastern waterfront. Rourke's people cloned an old contractor credential, Miles said. They were testing the system. Adrian looked at the access report. Why he wants Pier 12. He is not getting it. He offered a partnership last month. He offered to take half of something that belongs to me. Miles leaned back. Then he will look for leverage. Adrian's expression did not change. He will not find any. Miles glanced toward the closed blinds. Beyond them, Harper sat alone at her desk, typing beneath the soft light of her lamp. Adrian followed the direction of his gaze. His eyes hardened. She is an employee. Miles said nothing. Adrian closed the security file. Make sure you never have a reason to think otherwise. Harper left the building 20 minutes later. Adrian remained at the window and watched her cross the rain-darkened street toward the subway. He told himself he was checking whether security followed her to the station. He did not ask himself why he stayed at the glass until she disappeared underground. Tuesday morning arrived cold and gray. Harper reached her desk before sunrise, corrected Adrian's courthouse report, and reorganized his schedule. At 8:50, she heard the elevator. She expected Adrian. Instead, Ethan Cole stepped onto the executive floor carrying 2 cups of coffee. He looked toward Adrian's closed office, then placed 1 cup beside Harper's keyboard. The label read, Maple Oat Latte. 1 shot, no foam. Harper looked up. How did you get past security? Ethan smiled. I work in security. Ethan lifted the 2nd cup in his hand as if the badge clipped to his jacket explained everything. Harper looked from him to the coffee. You remembered. You sound surprised. I am. That is a terrible review of the men in your life. A smile pulled at the corner of her mouth. Ethan placed the cup beside her keyboard and leaned closer to read the label. Maple Oat Latte. 1 shot, no foam. I considered adding cinnamon, but you seem like someone who dislikes unapproved changes. I correct unapproved changes for a living. That explains the expression. What expression? The one that says you have already found 3 mistakes in my personality. Only 2. Ethan pressed a hand to his chest. Harper laughed. The sound escaped before she could soften it. Warm, bright, unprotected. It moved across the silent executive floor and struck the glass walls of Adrian's office. Inside, Adrian stopped speaking. He stood behind his desk with a phone pressed to his ear. Miles was seated across from him, reviewing photographs from the Gloucester terminal. A man on the line continued explaining a delayed payment. Adrian heard none of it. He turned toward the glass. Harper sat beneath the pale morning light with one hand wrapped around the coffee another man had brought her. A loose strand of hair curved against her cheek. Her eyes were brighter than Adrian had ever seen them. Ethan said something else. Harper smiled again. Adrian felt the reaction before he understood it. A cold pressure closed around his chest. He looked at Ethan's hand resting near Harper's keyboard. He looked at the ease between them. He looked at the coffee cup and thought of the dozens of cups Harper had placed on his desk without ever receiving one from him. Mr. Vale. The man on the phone had said his name twice. Adrian ended the call. Miles watched him. That sounded productive. Adrian placed the phone on his desk. Who is he? Miles followed his gaze. Ethan Cole. Security systems. Why is he on this floor? I assume he used the elevator. Adrian looked at him. Miles closed the file. You asked? Adrian opened the office door. The quiet outside changed immediately. Harper's laughter disappeared. Ethan turned. Adrian walked toward them without hurry. That made every step more threatening. Mr. Cole. Ethan straightened. Sir, why are you on my floor? I brought Miss Quinn coffee. Adrian's gaze dropped to the cup. That was not the question. Ethan's expression remained calm, though his shoulders had tightened. I needed to update her on the Gloucester breach. Did that update require breakfast? It is coffee. Adrian looked at Harper. She rose from her chair. He was only here for a minute. The words were harmless. Adrian heard them as defense. You have a conference call in 13 minutes, he said. It is already prepared. Inside my office, Ms. Quinn. Harper glanced at Ethan, then back at Adrian. Mr. Cole was speaking. He is finished. Ethan stepped away from the desk. I can return later. No, Adrian said. You cannot. Harper's eyes narrowed. Adrian continued. Your access to the executive floor is revoked. The remaining color left Ethan's face. For bringing coffee. For entering an area outside the requirements of your position. I had clearance. You no longer do. Harper moved around her desk. That is unnecessary. Adrian turned his full attention toward her. The anger in her face surprised him. Harper was always composed. Even when executives blamed her for their own mistakes, she answered with a quiet voice and precise facts. Now her cheeks were flushed. Her eyes held his without retreating. She looked alive in a way that disturbed his control. Inside, Adrian said. Harper did not move. Please, she added. The word was not polite. It was a warning. Adrian held her gaze. Then he stepped aside. Harper entered his office without looking at Ethan. Adrian followed and closed the door. The glass walls did nothing to soften the silence between them. Harper turned before he reached his desk. You embarrassed him. He will recover. You revoked his access because he brought me coffee. He had no reason to be on this floor. He found the person who tried to redirect 6 containers. He found the credential after you identified the breach. Then perhaps you should thank him for listening when everyone else dismissed me. Adrian's face became still. Who dismissed you? That is not the point. Who? Harper folded her arms. The Gloucester port manager wanted authorization from someone above me. Give Miles his name. I handled it. That was not my question. And Ethan is not yours to punish. Adrian moved around the desk. Does he bring you coffee often? Harper stared at him. Excuse me. The coffee. You called me in here to discuss my coffee. I asked a simple question. No. You asked an inappropriate question in a calm voice. Adrian stopped a few feet away. How long has he been interested in you? Harper gave a short, disbelieving laugh. You do not get to ask me that. Why not? Because it is none of your business. You work for me. I do not belong to you. The words struck the room with enough force to stop them both. Adrian's expression did not change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Harper took a slow breath. You have walked past me every morning for almost a year. You hand me files without looking at my face. You leave instructions on my desk and forget I am there until you need something fixed. I know you are there. That is not the same as seeing me. Adrian looked at her as if the accusation had exposed something he had kept hidden even from himself. Harper's voice lowered. You did not care who brought me coffee yesterday. You did not care who made me laugh last week. You care now because another man stood beside my desk and made it obvious that I exist. Adrian came closer. Harper held her ground. I am looking now, he said. Her throat tightened. The words were everything she had wanted to hear and exactly what she no longer trusted, only because someone else did first. Adrian's jaw hardened. Harper turned toward the door. Your conference call begins in 8 minutes. Harper. She stopped. It was the first time he had used her name that morning, perhaps the first time in weeks. She looked back. Adrian seemed to be searching for something to say, but men like him were better at issuing orders than explaining emotions. Harper opened the door. Ethan had gone. The coffee remained beside her keyboard. She sat down and placed both hands on the desk until the shaking stopped. Inside the office, Adrian stood at the glass. He watched Harper open a document and begin typing. She did not look toward him. He pressed the button on his desk phone. Miles answered. Yes, move Ms. Quinn's desk. There was a brief silence, where Adrian looked at the coffee cup beside her hand. Inside my office, 2 facilities workers arrived 20 minutes later. One carried a measuring tape. The other began disconnecting Harper's monitor. She caught his wrist before he touched the cable. Stop. The man froze. Adrian stepped out of his office. Is there a problem? Harper released the worker. Yes. Explain. No one is moving my desk until you give me a professional reason. Several assistants became very interested in their screens. Adrian looked at the workers. Wait near the elevator. They left quickly. Harper remained standing. Adrian lowered his voice. Someone entered our freight system using a contractor credential connected to headquarters and my residence. I know. You have access to executive schedules, financial records, and private communications. I had that access yesterday. Yesterday, I did not know the breach involved this building. Harper studied him. It was a reasonable explanation. That made it more difficult to argue against. You could have told me that before ordering people to move my things. Yes. The answer surprised her. Adrian rarely admitted error without being forced into it. Harper glanced toward his office. How long until Miles confirms the floor is secure? My desk stays near the door. Adrian's brows drew together. Why? Because I am not spending 10 hours trapped behind you. You would be near the windows. I would be inside your office. That is the point. It is your point. Adrian stepped closer. What are your conditions? Harper had not expected him to ask. She considered her answer carefully. The move is temporary. My job responsibilities do not change without a formal discussion. You do not decide who may speak to me unless there is a verified security risk. Adrian's expression cooled. Mr. Cole is part of the security investigation. He is also a person I am allowed to know. He wants more than professional contact. That is his responsibility. And yours. My responsibility is choosing for myself. Adrian held her gaze. The executive floor had become completely silent. Agreed, he said. Harper blinked. All of it. The desk remains near the door. The move is temporary. Your role remains unchanged. And Ethan Adrian's mouth tightened. You may speak to him. That sounded painful. It was. The workers returned. By 10:30, Harper's desk stood inside Adrian's office. It looked strangely small beside the dark wood tall windows and long conference table. Her monitor faced away from Adrian's desk. Her chair sat close to the door exactly as she had requested. The first hour passed without conversation. Adrian worked behind her. Harper could feel his presence even when she could not hear him. Every movement seemed louder inside the shared room. The click of her keyboard, the turning of paper, the quiet vibration of Adrian's phone, the sound of him removing his watch and placing it beside a file. At 11:15, Harper became aware that he was staring. She continued reading for several seconds. Then she looked up. Adrian lowered his gaze to the document in front of him. "Did you need something?" "No." "You were looking at me. I was looking toward the door." "I am not the door. I had noticed." Harper returned to her screen. A few minutes later, she reached for her peppermint tea. Adrian spoke without looking up. "You drink that when you are anxious." Her hand stopped. "You know what I drink when I am anxious. I know what you drink every day. You do not know what I eat. You had lentil soup yesterday." Harper turned in her chair. "How do you know that? The receipt was on your desk. You read my receipt. It was visible. So was I." Adrian finally looked at her. Neither of them spoke. Harper turned back toward her computer before the silence became something she could not control. At noon, 6 senior executives entered for an emergency client call. They filled the long table and opened identical folders. Harper remained at her desk reviewing the shipping contract that had caused the meeting. A medical supplier was threatening to cancel a $20 million agreement after 3 vessels were delayed by new inspections. The head of legal blamed customs. The operations director blamed the port. The finance director blamed the client. Adrian listened without interrupting. That was never a good sign. Harper opened the inspection requests. The same company had submitted all 3. Bayside Marine Compliance. She searched the state business registry. The company had been created 7 weeks earlier. Its address belonged to a vacant office above a seafood restaurant in East Boston. Harper searched the listed director. The name connected to another company, then another, each registered through the same attorney. The final company had received payments from a freight business controlled by Nolan Rourke. Harper stood. Every man at the table looked at her. Adrian did not. He was still reading the contract. "Mr. Vale." "What?" The inspections were not random. The head of legal frowned. "We already considered interference." Harper walked to the table and placed her tablet beside Adrian. "Bayside Marine Compliance requested all 3 inspections. It is connected through 4 shell companies to Rourke Freight." The room fell quiet. Adrian studied the records. "How long have you known 37 minutes? No one else found this." Harper looked at the executives. No one else read the attachments. The operations director shifted in his chair. Adrian moved to the next page. "Can the cargo be rerouted?" "The client contract allows temporary transfer through an approved secondary terminal if government action prevents the original route." Legal shook his head. "The secondary terminal would need federal clearance." "Providence already has it," Harper said. "Vale Harbor acquired access rights there last year." The finance director looked at her. "That facility cannot handle the full shipment. It does not need to. The contract only requires departure before Friday. Split the cargo between Providence and New Bedford, then consolidate offshore." Adrian leaned back. The room waited. "Do it," he said. The operations director opened his mouth. Adrian looked at him. "Ms. Quinn found the solution. Follow her instructions." The words changed the room. The executives turned toward Harper not as an assistant waiting to take notes, but as the person holding the answer. She explained the routing plan. No one interrupted. When the meeting ended, the head of legal took her report with both hands and asked whether she could review the revised client letter before it was sent. Harper agreed. The door closed behind the final executive. She remained at the table gathering documents. You should have received credit for Gloucester, Adrian said. Harper looked up. Yes. He seemed surprised by the answer. She placed the last folder in a stack. I thought you would say it did not matter. It mattered. You did not say so. I am saying it now. Harper carried the files to her desk. Adrian watched her. Thank you would be appropriate, he said. She glanced over her shoulder. Thank you. That did not sound sincere. You are improving. I do not want to overwhelm you. Something almost resembling amusement moved across his face. It disappeared before she could be certain. They worked through the afternoon. The rain thickened against the windows. Boston Harbor vanished behind gray mist. Cargo cranes became dark shadows moving through the distance. At 7:30, Harper's stomach tightened with hunger. She ignored it. At 8, a restaurant employee arrived with 2 large bags. Harper looked at Adrian. I did not order dinner. I did. The employee placed a covered plate on the conference table. Adrian removed the lid. A steak rested beside roasted potatoes. Harper stared at it. Adrian noticed her expression. What I am vegetarian. He looked at the plate, then at her. For how long? 12 years. You have worked outside my office for 11 months. Yes, I have seen you eat. Apparently not very carefully. Adrian picked up the phone. 5 minutes later, he had ordered vegetable pasta, mushroom risotto, tomato soup, 2 salads, roasted cauliflower, and 3 desserts from a restaurant 4 blocks away. Harper folded her arms. That is enough food for 12 people. I did not know what you wanted. You could have asked. Adrian looked at her as though the solution had never occurred to him. Harper laughed. It was softer than the laugh Ethan had drawn from her that morning, but Adrian reacted just as strongly. His gaze lifted. The room seemed to narrow around them. You should do that more often, he said. Order too much food. Laugh. Harper's smile faded slightly. People usually need a reason. Adrian's eyes remained on her. Then I will find one. The food arrived. They ate at the conference table while the city disappeared behind rain. Harper chose the mushroom risotto. Adrian barely touched his steak. You still do not eat your food while it is hot, she said. You noticed. I notice most things that become my responsibility. Adrian set down his fork. Is that what I am? A responsibility? Yes. Harper looked at him across the table. You are several responsibilities wearing an expensive suit. His mouth shifted. This time she saw the smile. It changed him. The severity left his face for a moment, revealing the man beneath the reputation. Harper's chest tightened. That was the danger. Not the threats whispered about him. Not the men who moved aside when he entered a room. The danger was seeing the person he allowed almost no one else to see. Adrian's smile faded. Why did you stay at Vale Harbor for 11 months? Harper looked down at her plate. The salary is good. You could earn more somewhere else. The view is nice. You dislike heights. She raised her eyes. You know that I know you take the stairs when the elevator shakes during storms. I know you call your mother every Thursday. I know you use handwritten notes when you believe a task matters. Harper said nothing. Adrian continued. You stayed late on October 17th even though you had no work left. Her fingers tightened around the fork. It was the anniversary of the day her father left. She had never told anyone in the office. How do you know that date? You looked at the clock every few minutes and did not leave until after midnight. You noticed all of that, I told you. I notice everything. Harper pushed her chair back slightly. Then why did you pretend I was not there? Adrian turned toward the windows. Rain moved across the glass in silver lines. For several seconds he did not answer. When I was 17, my mother was taken by men who wanted something from my father. Harper became still. Adrian's voice remained controlled, but the control felt thin. They held her for 6 days. She came home alive. She never entered a dark room again. Harper watched his reflection in the window. My father loved her. His enemies knew it. That was enough. You thought ignoring me would protect me. I thought distance would prevent you from becoming relevant. To whom? To me. The honesty of the answer settled heavily between them. Harper rose from the table. Adrian turned. You cannot erase people because you are afraid of losing them, she said. I know. No. You understand the words. That is not the same thing. She carried her plate toward the kitchen. Adrian caught her wrist gently. Harper stopped. His hand was warm around her skin. He did not pull her closer. He simply held her there as if the contact itself had surprised him. I was not blind to you, he said. That almost makes it worse. I know. Harper looked down at his hand. Adrian released her. The following days passed in a rhythm neither of them discussed. They worked together from early morning until the building emptied. Adrian began asking for Harper's opinion during meetings instead of waiting for her to place a written answer on his desk. Harper began correcting him aloud. He did not always appreciate it. He always listened. She learned he rubbed the scar near his wrist when he was angry. He learned she removed her shoes beneath the desk after 6. He stopped ordering food without asking what she wanted. She started leaving half his coffee untouched so he would notice how often he forgot it. On Thursday afternoon, Ethan entered Adrian's office with Miles. Adrian's attention hardened immediately. Harper saw it. She closed the file in front of her. Ethan placed a tablet on the table. We traced the cloned credential. Adrian remained behind his desk. To whom Derek Shaw? He completed systems work here and at your Beacon Hill residence. I know his employment history. There is more. Ethan opened a security map. Shaw's credential accessed the headquarters network 3 times after his contract ended. One of those entries came from inside this floor. Harper looked toward the glass door. Someone used it here or copied the signal from a device already here. Miles studied the map. We are checking every terminal. Ethan looked at Harper. Until we know how the signal was captured, do not connect your phone to the company network. Adrian answered before she could. She will not. Harper turned in her chair. I can speak. Adrian's gaze met hers. Yes. The single word contained visible effort. Ethan continued. Do not use public charging stations. Do not open messages from unknown numbers. Call me if your phone behaves strangely. She will call Miles, Adrian said. Harper gave him a warning look. Adrian leaned back. Or Mr. Cole. Ethan almost smiled. When the briefing ended, he stopped beside Harper's desk. Are you all right in here? Harper saw Adrian's shoulders tighten across the room. She answered before he could. I am capable of saying when I am not. Ethan nodded. I know. I wanted to ask anyway. Thank you. He left with Miles. Adrian waited until the door closed. He wants more than friendship. Harper returned to her report. That is his responsibility. And yours? My responsibility is still choosing for myself. You repeat that often. You require repetition. Adrian came around the desk. Would you choose him? Harper looked up. The question held none of his usual authority, only uncertainty. You do not know enough about me to ask that. I know more than you think. You know my habits. I know you minimize every disappointment before anyone else can. I know you apologize when other people interrupt you. I know you are angry for exactly 6 seconds before you decide anger is inconvenient. Harper's breath caught. Adrian moved closer. I know you pretend you stayed because the salary is good. Then why did I stay? His voice lowered. Tell me. The air between them became too warm. Harper stood. She was close enough to see the faint line of tiredness beneath his eyes. "I stayed because I saw you help that little girl during the charity event." Adrian's expression changed. "You remember that? You sat on the floor and drew the worst dog I had ever seen. It was recognizable. She thought it was a horse. She was distressed. You paid her father's medical bills." Adrian became still. "You were not supposed to know. I heard you speaking to accounting." Harper looked at him. "That was when I started believing the coldest man in Boston might have a heart. And now I think he keeps it locked away and punishes everyone who gets close enough to hear it." Adrian's gaze dropped to her mouth. Harper felt the movement like a touch. A flash of lightning illuminated the windows. The lights flickered. The elevator alarm sounded faintly beyond the office. Harper's body tightened. Adrian noticed. "The elevator has stopped," she said. "For maintenance. In a storm." He remembered. Without comment, he gathered the files for their evening meeting. "We are moving downstairs. The meeting is on 41. It is now on 12. You do not need to rearrange the building because I dislike elevators. We will take the stairs." He opened the door. Harper followed him into the stairwell. They descended in silence while thunder rolled above the building. At the landing between floors, 38 and 37, Harper stopped. Adrian turned. "You remembered?" "Yes." "Why?" His hand rested on the railing. "Because I remember everything about you that I spent 11 months pretending not to know." Harper's heartbeat became painfully loud. "That does not repair what happened." "No. You cannot decide I exist because another man made me laugh." "I know." "Then stop saying that." Adrian stepped down until they stood on the same landing. "He made me understand something. What it would feel like to lose something I had no right to claim. You still do not have that right." "Then tell me to walk away." The storm pressed against the building. Harper looked at the man she had loved in silence, the man who frightened half the city and stood before her waiting for permission. She should have told him to leave. She should have remembered every morning he had walked past her. Instead, she whispered, "I spent 11 months trying to stop wanting you." Adrian did not move. "Harper, I hated myself for noticing everything. Your coffee, your meetings, the way you loosen your watch when you are angry. I told myself it was foolish because you never saw me. I saw you. Not enough." "No." His honesty hurt more than denial. Harper looked away. Adrian lifted one hand and touched her cheek. His thumb rested beneath her eye. He gave her time to step back. She did not. "Tell me to stop," he said. Harper reached for the front of his coat. "If I wanted you to stop, I would not still be here." Adrian kissed her. Slowly at first, carefully. The restraint in it made the moment more dangerous, not less. Harper had imagined his mouth hard and demanding. Instead, he kissed her as if she were something fragile he had no intention of breaking. She tightened her hand in his coat and pulled him closer. That ended his restraint. Adrian's hand moved to the back of her neck. The kiss deepened. The stairwell, the storm, and the city beyond the walls disappeared beneath the heat between them. Harper felt 11 months of silence collapse at once. When Adrian finally drew back, his forehead rested against hers. Neither of them spoke. His breathing was uneven. She had never imagined Adrian Vale could sound unsteady. The emergency lights flickered above them. Harper opened her eyes. "This changes nothing about my conditions." A quiet laugh moved through his chest. "I would be disappointed if it did." They completed the meeting on the 12th floor. Adrian sat across the table from Harper and did not look at her once. That required more discipline than any negotiation he had survived. The following morning, Harper arrived at 7. Her desk was exactly where she had left it. A fresh maple oat latte sat beside her keyboard. One shot. No foam. There was no note. She looked through the glass toward Adrian's empty chair. A black envelope rested at the center of his desk. Harper assumed it belonged with the morning mail. She carried it inside and placed it beside his files. Adrian arrived 15 minutes later. He entered without removing his coat. "Good morning," Harper said. His eyes moved to the coffee in her hand, then to the envelope. "Who delivered that?" "It was here when I arrived." Adrian crossed the room and opened it. A photograph slid onto the desk. Harper saw herself leaving the building the previous night. She stood beneath a streetlight, one hand raised against the rain. A red circle had been drawn around her face. Adrian turned the photograph over. 4 words were written across the back. "You found something worth losing." The warmth left his expression. He looked through the glass walls across the executive floor and toward the city beyond it. Then he looked at Harper. This time being seen did not feel like love. It felt like a target. Harper stood beside Adrian's desk while the city moved beyond the glass as if nothing had changed. Ferries crossed the harbor. Trucks rolled toward the docks. People hurried beneath umbrellas on streets more than 40 floors below. Inside the office, the air had gone still. Adrian studied the photograph again. The angle had been taken from across the street. Harper could see the entrance to her apartment building behind her, along with the corner market where she bought tea on Sunday mornings. Someone had known exactly when she would leave work. Someone had followed her home. Harper pressed her fingers against the edge of the desk. "When was this taken last night?" "You cannot know that from the photograph. I know the coat you wore." His answer came too quickly. Harper looked at him. Adrian did not seem to notice what he had admitted. His attention remained fixed on the message written across the back. "You found something worth losing." Miles entered less than a minute later. He took one look at Adrian's face and closed the office door behind him. "What happened?" Adrian handed him the photograph. Miles examined both sides. "Who touched the envelope?" "I did," Harper said. "Anyone else?" "It was on his desk when I arrived." Miles moved toward the intercom. "Lock the floor. No one leaves until security clears every office." Harper looked through the glass. Assistants had begun gathering near the elevators. 2 security officers appeared from the stairwell. Adrian picked up his phone. "Send a team to Miss Quinn's apartment." Harper turned toward him. "My mother." Adrian's gaze snapped back to her. "Where is she, Worcester?" "She works at St. Vincent Hospital." Miles was already typing. "I will put someone near her." "No." Both men looked at Harper. She took a breath. "You cannot send armed strangers to follow my mother without telling her why." "She may be exposed," Adrian said. "She will panic if men she does not know appear outside her house. Then call her and say what?" The question left her mouth sharper than she intended. That the man she worked for controlled half the harbor. That someone had taken her photograph because she had kissed him in a stairwell. That her life had become dangerous because a powerful man had finally decided she mattered. Harper looked back at the picture. Her own face stared up at her from beneath the red circle. Her hands began to shake. She curled them into fists. Adrian noticed. He stepped closer. "Sit down." "I do not need to sit. You are pale. I am being threatened." "Pale seems reasonable." Miles looked toward the door. "I will give you both a minute." "No," Harper said. "Stay." Adrian's expression tightened. "This is a security matter." "Then I need the security chief in the room. You need protection. I need facts." Adrian moved between Harper and the windows. "You will not return to your apartment." She stared at him. "That is not a fact. It is a decision. Yours." "Yes." The answer came without hesitation. Harper felt fear give way to anger. "You do not decide where I live. Someone photographed you outside your building. Then tell me who sent it. Nolan Rourke. How do you know? Because he wants Pier 12 and believes pressure will make me surrender it. Will it? Adrian's eyes turned cold. No. Then what happens to me? Silence answered first. Harper understood more from that silence than she had from any explanation. Rourke had not chosen her because of anything she had done. He had chosen her because Adrian cared. She was leverage, a weakness with a name. Adrian reached for her hand. Harper stepped back. Do not. His hand fell. I am trying to keep you alive, and I am trying to understand what my life has become. There is no time. There is always time to explain before you take away someone's choices. Adrian looked at Miles. Clear the building. Miles did not move. Adrian. Now. Miles remained near the door. She is right. Adrian's face became unreadable. Miles continued. If you force her into a car without explaining the plan, she will spend the entire night looking for a way out. That makes her harder to protect. I am standing here, Harper said. Miles glanced at her. I know. Adrian looked from one to the other. His control did not break. It narrowed. Fine. He moved to the conference table and opened a security map. Harper stayed where she was. Adrian placed his hands on the table. Rourke controls several freight companies south of the city. He wants access to Pier 12 because it is the only terminal on the eastern waterfront deep enough for his international routes. I refused him. So he attacked the Gloucester system to test our access, and now he is threatening me. Yes. Does he know about us? Adrian's eyes met hers. There is no us that anyone should know about. The words cut more deeply than Harper expected. Adrian saw it. That is not what I meant. What did you mean? The kiss happened in a secured stairwell. Apparently not secured enough. Miles shifted his attention to the map. Adrian lowered his voice. Rourke does not need proof of a relationship. He needs only to believe I care whether you live. Harper looked down at the red circle around her face. Do you? The question was barely audible. Adrian moved toward her. More than I can afford. For a moment, fear returned in a different form. Harper had spent nearly a year wanting those words. Now they sounded like a death sentence. Miles cleared his throat. The safest location is the Beacon Hill house. Private access. Reinforced windows. Internal security. 2 protection teams. Harper looked at him. How long until we identify who delivered the envelope and how they tracked you? I keep my phone. Adrian began to speak. Harper raised a hand. I keep my phone. I call my mother myself. I receive the complete security plan. No one changes my location without telling me. No one answers questions for me. I decide when this immediate threat is over. Adrian stared at her. You are negotiating with a man who wants you alive. I am negotiating with the man who wants to control what happens next. I want to prevent you from being taken. Then let me understand the plan. Adrian's jaw tightened. Miles watched him patiently. Harper did not look away. At last, Adrian nodded. You keep your phone. And the rest? You will have the security plan. All of it. Yes. I speak to my mother. Yes. You do not answer for me. Adrian exhaled slowly. Yes. Harper looked at Miles. Was that legally binding? It was witnessed. Adrian gave him a cold look. Miles closed the folder. I will prepare the cars. Harper returned to her desk. Her hands were steadier now. She called her mother. The conversation lasted 6 minutes. Harper said there had been a security concern at work. She said the company was moving several employees to protected locations. She did not say she was the only employee being moved. Her mother asked whether Adrian Vale appreciated her. Harper looked through the glass at him. He stood near the windows, speaking into his phone, issuing orders in a voice too low for anyone else to hear. "Yes," Harper said. "I think he does." The journey to Beacon Hill took less than 20 minutes. Harper sat in the back of a black vehicle beside Adrian. Miles occupied the front passenger seat. Another car followed behind them. Boston passed outside in fragments. Wet brick, old church towers, headlights reflected across narrow streets. Harper watched every intersection. Adrian watched her. "You are counting turns," he said. "I like knowing where I am. You know where you are. I know what neighborhood we entered. That is not the same thing." He reached for the folder on the seat between them. Inside were photographs of the residents' emergency exits, assigned guards, and communication codes. Harper took it. Adrian had included every detail she requested. That did not erase his earlier command. It mattered anyway. The Beacon Hill house stood behind a stone wall on a quiet street lined with old trees and red brick homes. From the outside, it looked elegant rather than fortified. Inside, Harper noticed the cameras hidden above the doors, the reinforced locks, and the security glass disguised as ordinary windows. A guard opened the front entrance. Adrian stepped inside first. Harper followed. The house was beautiful. It was also empty. A wide staircase curved upward beneath a crystal chandelier. Dark wood floors reflected the warm light. Paintings hung on the walls in careful intervals, each one expensive and impersonal. No coats rested near the entrance. No shoes had been left beneath a chair. No photograph showed anyone smiling. Harper removed her coat. "You live here alone?" "Yes. This house has 12 dining chairs. I occasionally receive guests." "Do they eat?" "Sometimes." She looked toward the formal dining room. Only one chair bore faint scratches on the floor beneath it. The rest had barely moved. Miles entered behind them. "Harper, your room is upstairs, second door on the right. Adrian is across the hall." Adrian looked at him. Miles continued as if he had not noticed. "The west staircase leads to the kitchen. The service passage behind the library connects to the lower security room. Every bedroom has a silent alarm beneath the nightstand." Harper opened the security folder. "The alarm contacts your team." "Yes, and the police, not automatically." Why Adrian removed his coat? "Because the police do not enter this house without warning." Harper looked at him. "You make that sound normal. In my life, it is." Miles showed her the panic buttons, emergency locks, and communication system. Harper asked where every exit led. She asked which doors were reinforced and which depended on electronic locks. She asked how long backup power could keep the house secure. Adrian watched her move through the rooms with the folder pressed against her chest. "You do not frighten easily," he said when Miles left to brief the guards. Harper looked at the dark windows. "I am terrified." "You do not look terrified. I spent most of my childhood pretending everything was fine so my mother would not worry." She touched the lock beside the nearest door. "Fear is easier to manage when it has instructions." Adrian stepped closer. "I should have told you sooner." "Yes. I thought distance was enough. It was enough for you." He accepted the accusation. That made it harder for Harper to remain angry. She carried her bag upstairs. Her assigned bedroom was larger than her apartment. A fire burned in the stone fireplace. Fresh clothes had been placed in the wardrobe. Her favorite tea sat on a tray beside the bed. Harper picked up the box. "Did you have someone search my kitchen?" Adrian stood in the doorway. "I asked what you drank." "Who did you ask?" "Your grocery service." "You investigated my groceries. I reviewed your account after the photograph arrived." That is a sentence no normal person would say. "I have never claimed to be normal." Harper set the tea down. "You could have asked me. I am beginning to understand that." Slowly. "Yes." He remained in the doorway. Despite the size of the room, Adrian seemed too large for it. Harper looked at the bandage of tension across his shoulders. "Have you eaten?" "No." "Of course not. I had other concerns. You become difficult when you do not eat. I am always difficult. You become worse." A small change touched his expression. Harper followed him downstairs. The kitchen was modern and spotless. Adrian opened the refrigerator. There were eggs, bottled water, vegetables, and several containers prepared by a private chef. He selected the eggs. Harper leaned against the counter. "What are you doing cooking? Have you done that before?" "Yes." When Adrian cracked an egg too hard. Part of the shell fell into the bowl. Harper watched him remove it with his fingers. "That did not answer my question. My mother taught me." He poured the eggs into a pan. The heat was too high. Within seconds, the edges began to burn. Harper smelled smoke. Adrian frowned at the pan as though it had violated an agreement. She pressed her lips together. "You may laugh," he said. "I am deciding whether it is safe." "It is not." Harper laughed anyway. The sound moved through the empty kitchen and softened it. Adrian looked at her. For one brief moment, the house seemed less like a fortress. He switched off the stove. "I will order food. That might save us both." Dinner arrived in covered containers. They ate at the smaller table near the kitchen rather than the formal dining room. Harper asked about the paintings. Adrian knew the prices, but not the artists. She asked about the piano in the sitting room. His hand stopped near his glass. "My mother played. Do you?" "No." "Why keep it?" Adrian looked toward the doorway. Because removing it felt worse. Later, Harper wandered into the library while Adrian spoke with Miles in the hall. The room smelled of leather, old paper, and cedar. Books covered 3 walls. A silver watch rested beside a framed photograph on a low shelf. Harper had seen the watch on Adrian's desk. She picked up the photograph. A teenage Adrian stood beside a woman with dark hair and kind eyes. His expression was serious even then, but one corner of his mouth curved upward. The woman held his arm. "You found her." Adrian's voice came from behind her. Harper turned. "Your mother?" "Yes." She was beautiful. She hated photographs. Harper looked at the image again. She does not look afraid. She was not. Not then. Adrian entered the room. The fire cast moving shadows across his face. Harper set the frame down carefully. "You said she was taken." Adrian's gaze remained on the photograph. "My father was fighting for control of a shipping contract. The men against him could not reach him through business, so they followed my mother home from a charity dinner." Harper remained silent. "They kept her in a room without windows for 6 days. His voice had lost all warmth. She came back alive. Everyone called that a victory." "What happened after?" She stopped sleeping. She refused to enter elevators. She covered every mirror in the house because she believed someone was watching through them. Harper looked at the untouched piano beyond the library door. "And your father?" He responded by killing everyone connected to it. The fire cracked. Did that help her? No. Did it help him? Adrian looked at Harper. He never asked. The answer revealed more than anger. It held a child's memory of 2 parents lost in different ways. Harper moved closer. "So you built a life where no one could become your weakness?" "Yes." "And you thought ignoring me would keep that life intact?" "It did for a while. Until Ethan brought me coffee." Adrian's mouth tightened. "Until you laughed for him. It was only a laugh." "No." His voice lowered. "It was proof that someone else understood how to reach a part of you I had never earned." Harper felt the old ache return. "You could have spoken to me." "I know. You keep saying that. Because every time you tell me what I should have done, I realize how simple it was. She looked at him. Then do something simple now. What? Ask me what I want. Adrian stood very still. What do you want? Harper looked toward the photograph. I want the truth. I want to know what danger I am in. I want to decide what I can live with. And us. Her eyes returned to his. I want you to stop using protection as another word for control. Adrian absorbed the words without defense. Then he nodded once. You are right. Harper had prepared herself for argument. The apology unsettled her more. You agree I do. That was easier than expected. It was not easy. Good. Adrian stepped closer. Harper could feel the warmth of him. I do not know how to care for someone without trying to control every variable around them, he said. I am not a variable. No. His eyes moved across her face. You are the reason control no longer feels possible. He lifted one hand. This time he waited. Harper closed the distance herself. His fingers touched her cheek. The kiss was quieter than the one in the stairwell. It carried no urgency, only the weight of two people standing inside a room shaped by everything they feared. The following morning, Harper woke before sunrise. For several seconds, she did not recognize the room. Then she saw the security folder on the nightstand. She remembered the photograph, the red circle, the message. Her phone displayed 3 missed calls from Ethan. Harper sat up. She called him back. He answered immediately. Are you safe? Yes. Where are you at Adrian's house? There was a pause. That is probably the safest place in Boston. You do not sound convinced. I found something. Harper moved toward the window. The street below remained quiet. What Derek Shaw did more than clone credentials. He installed a maintenance access program in the residence system. Her hand tightened around the phone. Can he still use it? Shaw disappeared 2 days ago. His apartment is empty. Did you tell Miles I sent him the report last night? Did he respond? No. Harper looked at the bedroom door. What does the program control? Cameras, electronic locks, alarm timing. It was disguised as diagnostic software. Can you disable it? I need direct access to the main server. Then come here. I cannot enter without authorization. I will get it. The door opened. Adrian entered carrying coffee. He saw the phone in her hand. Who are you speaking to, Ethan? Adrian's expression changed. Harper raised a finger. Do not. He placed the coffee on the table. Ethan continued. Harper, listen to me. If Miles did not receive that report, someone may be filtering security communications. Adrian heard enough to step closer. Harper switched the call to speaker. Ethan repeated what he had found. Adrian looked towards the hall. When did you send it? 11:46 last night. Miles was with me. He did not receive it. Adrian took out his phone. Send it directly to this number. Harper gave Ethan the secure contact. The file arrived seconds later. Adrian opened it. His face hardened. Stay available, he said. Ethan answered carefully. I intend to. Adrian ended the call. Harper crossed her arms. He helped us. Yes. You were about to object because I was speaking to him. Yes. Are you going to tell me to block his number? Adrian looked at the report. No. Why not? Because you asked me to stop isolating you from everyone except me. The answer surprised her. Adrian continued. I heard you. Harper's anger softened. Thank you. I still dislike him. You are allowed to dislike him. He wants you. That is not a threat. It feels like one. Harper almost smiled. You control ports unions and half the freight traffic in Massachusetts, but a man with coffee frightens you. Adrian looked at her. He makes you laugh. So do you. The tension in his face eased. Later that morning, Miles arrived with 3 security supervisors. The report had not reached his system. Someone had diverted the message before it entered the house network. The group gathered in the dining room. Maps, schedules, and access records covered the table. Harper sat beside Adrian. No one asked her to leave. Miles explained that the guards worked in 12-hour rotations. Each supervisor received updated transportation plans through a separate secure channel. Harper studied the schedules. They are too consistent. One supervisor looked at her. What is the rotation? Every change happens at 6. Anyone watching the house knows when one team is leaving and another is arriving. We overlap the shifts by 15 minutes. Then the overlap is predictable, too. Adrian looked at the maps. What do you suggest Harper considered the routes? Send 3 different schedules. The room quieted. 1 to each supervisor, she continued. Different departure times, different locations. If Rourke's people appear at one route, you know which channel is compromised. Miles nodded slowly. A controlled leak. Yes. Adrian studied Harper. You should not be this good at thinking like criminals. I manage executives. Criminals are more honest about what they want. One of the supervisors hid a smile. By noon, 3 false transportation plans had been distributed. One sent Harper to a hotel in Cambridge. One sent her to a private airfield outside Bedford. The third arranged a protected convoy to Worcester. No one outside the room knew the plans were false. The hours passed. Nothing happened. At sunset, Miles reported no movement near any of the locations. Adrian stood in the library with his phone in hand. They may know we are testing them. Harper sat near the fire. Or the leak is not connected to the supervisors. Then it is someone closer. Adrian looked toward the security cameras hidden in the ceiling. Harper followed his gaze. The house suddenly felt different. The walls were reinforced. The windows could withstand bullets. The locks required encrypted access. None of it mattered if the person opening the door was already inside. At 10:30, Adrian walked Harper upstairs. 2 guards stood at the end of the hall. Her bedroom door had been fitted with an additional mechanical lock. You will remain here tonight, he said. That sounded like an order, a request. Poorly delivered. Adrian glanced toward the guards. I am trying. Harper touched his hand. I know. He looked down at her fingers around his. I will be across the hall. I know. If you hear anything, use the alarm. I read the instructions. Harper. She met his eyes. I will. He kissed her forehead. The tenderness of the gesture stayed with her after the door closed. At 1:13 in the morning, the power went out. Harper opened her eyes. The fireplace had gone dark. For several seconds, the silence was complete. Then emergency lights flickered on in the hallway, turning the space beneath her door red. Harper reached for her phone. No signal. She pressed the silent alarm beneath the nightstand. Nothing happened. A sharp crack sounded downstairs. Glass. Harper left the bed. Her bare feet touched the cold floor. She moved toward the door and listened. Footsteps crossed the hallway. Slow, controlled. Not the hurried steps of guards reacting to danger. Someone tested the handle. The mechanical lock held. A man's voice came through the wood. Harper Quinn. She did not answer. Mr. Rourke would like a conversation. Harper backed toward the wardrobe. The security plans flashed through her mind. The service passage behind the east wall, the library staircase, the lower security room. The door handle turned again. Metal struck wood. Once, twice. The frame began to split. Harper pulled open the wardrobe, pushed aside the hanging clothes, and found the narrow panel hidden behind them. Another blow shook the bedroom door. Harper pressed the latch. The panel opened into darkness. She stepped inside. Behind her, the bedroom door broke. The bedroom door broke behind her. Harper pulled the hidden panel closed and pressed one hand against it as wood splintered across the room beyond. For one terrible second she could not hear anything except her own breathing. Then a man entered the bedroom. His boots crossed the floor slowly. A drawer opened. The bed frame shifted. He was searching for her. Harper turned toward the narrow passage. There was no light inside. The walls pressed close to her shoulders. Dust touched her bare feet as she moved forward with one hand against the stone. She remembered Miles showing her the floor plan earlier that day. The passage connected the bedrooms to the library and the service stairs. It had once allowed servants to move through the house without entering the main halls. Adrian had called it unnecessary. Harper had studied it anyway. A dull metallic sound came from the bedroom. The attacker had found the hidden panel. Harper moved faster. She reached the first turn and struck her shoulder against the wall. Pain flashed down her arm, but she kept going. Behind her, the panel opened. A thin line of red emergency light entered the passage. "There you are." The voice was calm. Harper's fear became sharp and useful. She ran. The passage opened behind a wardrobe in the library. Harper pushed against the interior latch. It stuck. Footsteps approached from the darkness. She pushed again. Nothing. The man behind her was close enough that she could hear his breathing. Harper braced one shoulder against the panel and drove her weight forward. The door opened. She fell into the library, caught herself against a chair, and turned as the attacker entered behind her. He wore a black mask and carried a pistol low beside his leg. "Do not make this difficult." Harper looked at the weapon, then at the distance between them. "You broke into the wrong house if you were hoping for easy." The man reached for her. Harper grabbed the metal fireplace poker and swung it at his wrist. The pistol struck the floor. He cursed and lunged. Harper swung again. The poker hit his shoulder, but his other hand closed around her sleeve. Fabric tore as he dragged her forward. Harper drove her knee upward. His grip loosened. She twisted free and ran toward the hall. A gunshot cracked from the lower floor. Then another. The house came alive with shouting, breaking glass, and the sharp rhythm of weapons firing through dark rooms. Harper reached the library door. A second man appeared in the hallway. He raised his gun. Harper dropped to the floor. The first attacker crashed into him from behind. The weapon fired into the ceiling. Plaster rained down. Harper crawled beneath a side table and kicked the library door shut. The men struck the other side almost immediately. She forced herself to think. The main staircase was exposed. The kitchen corridor might already be occupied. The lower security room could restore the alarms, but only if she reached it. The service stairs were 10 feet away. Harper ran. She reached the narrow staircase and took the steps 2 at a time. On the floor below, another gunshot shook the walls. A man shouted. Then she heard Adrian's voice. "Harper." He was somewhere above her. The sound almost made her stop. She looked up through the stairwell. "Adrian." No answer came. Only another burst of gunfire. Harper continued downward. At the far end of the second floor, Adrian stood behind a stone column with a pistol in his hand. He was barefoot. His white shirt hung open at the throat, and blood from a cut near his temple ran down the side of his face. Miles crouched near the stairs, reloading. "How many?" Adrian asked. "At least 4 inside," Miles said. "2 guards are not responding." Adrian glanced toward the dark hallway. Harper's room, breached. The calm left Adrian's face. He moved before Miles could stop him. "Adrian." He ignored the warning. Adrian crossed the hallway as a masked man emerged from the library. The attacker raised his weapon. Adrian fired once. The man fell against the wall. Another attacker appeared behind him. Miles fired from the staircase. The second man disappeared into the library. Adrian reached Harper's bedroom. The door hung broken from its frame. The room was empty. The bed had been overturned. The wardrobe stood open. A torn piece of Harper's sleeve lay near the hidden passage. Adrian picked it up. His hand closed around the fabric. A voice came from inside the wall. "She is worth more alive." Adrian looked toward the darkness. The last restraint in him disappeared. He entered the passage. Harper reached the lower security room. The door was open. One of the house guards lay beside the control desk. She crouched near him and pressed 2 fingers against his neck. A pulse, weak but present. Harper grabbed the radio clipped to his jacket. Static answered. She looked at the monitors. Most were dark. One showed a hallway filled with red emergency light. Another displayed the rear courtyard. A black vehicle waited beyond the gate with its engine running. 3 men moved through the house. One stood near the front entrance. One was heading toward the lower floor. The third had entered the service passage behind Adrian. Harper looked at the control panel. The system displayed a warning. Manual override active. User authorization appeared beneath it. Derek Shaw. Ethan had been right. The program was still inside the house. Harper connected the backup terminal. A login screen appeared. She tried the emergency code Miles had given her. Access denied. She tried again. The screen flashed. 2 attempts remaining. Footsteps sounded in the corridor. Harper looked toward the open door. The guard's weapon lay several feet away beneath the desk. She crawled toward it. A shadow crossed the hall. Harper reached the pistol and wrapped both hands around it. She had never fired a gun. Miles had explained the safety earlier that day. Harper had listened. A man entered the doorway. She raised the weapon. "Stop!" Her voice did not shake. The attacker looked at her hands, then at her face. "You are not going to shoot me." Harper held the gun steady. He stepped closer. "Do not. You do not know how. I know where the trigger is." He smiled behind the mask. "That is not enough." He moved. Harper fired. The shot struck the wall beside his head. The sound stunned both of them. The attacker lunged. Harper pulled the fire suppression lever beside the desk. Water and white chemical foam exploded from the ceiling. The man covered his face. Harper dropped behind the control station as he fired. Bullets tore through the monitors. Glass scattered across the floor. Harper crawled beneath the desk and reached for the emergency drive attached to the terminal. The access log was still open. She pressed the copy command. A progress bar appeared. 20%. The attacker moved through the foam. Harper could see only his boots. 40%. He kicked the fallen chair aside. 60%. Harper held her breath. 80%. The man leaned beneath the desk. Harper struck him across the face with the pistol. He grabbed her ankle. The copy completed. Harper ripped the drive from the terminal and kicked him with her free foot. His grip tightened. Then a gunshot sounded. The attacker fell beside her. Miles stood in the doorway. Water ran down his face and darkened his jacket. "Are you hurt?" Harper shook her head. "The guard is alive." Miles crossed the room and checked him. Harper pushed herself upright. "Someone used Derek Shaw's authorization. I copied the logs." Miles looked at the drive in her hand. "Keep it. Where is Adrian?" Miles did not answer quickly enough. Harper moved toward the door. "Where is he?" "He went after you. I am here. He does not know that." Harper ran into the hall. Adrian moved through the service passage with one hand against the wall. The narrow space forced him to lower his weapon. He heard movement ahead. A man stepped from an opening near the library. Adrian fired. The attacker dropped, but another figure struck Adrian from behind. The weapon left his hand. Adrian turned and caught the man's wrist before the knife reached his throat. They hit the wall. The attacker drove his shoulder into Adrian's chest. Adrian slammed the man's hand against the stone until the knife fell. The man struck him across the face. Adrian answered with 2 hard blows to the ribs. The attacker staggered. Adrian grabbed the back of his neck and drove him into the wall. The man collapsed. Adrian retrieved his weapon. Then he heard Harper call his name. He turned toward the library opening. She appeared at the end of the hall with Miles behind her. Relief hit him so violently that for 1 second he could not move. Harper ran toward him. "You are alive!" Adrian reached for her face. Are you hurt?" "No." He checked her arms, her shoulders, the torn fabric near her sleeve. "There is blood. It is not mine." His hand stopped. Harper touched the cut at his temple. "You are bleeding. I am fine." "You are not fine." A sound came from the stairs. Miles turned. "Move!" The final attacker entered the hall with his weapon raised. Adrian pushed Harper behind the stone wall. The gun fired. Adrian's body jerked. Harper heard the impact before she understood it. He stumbled backward. A dark stain spread across his white shirt below the shoulder. "Adrian." He remained standing. The attacker fired again. Miles answered from the opposite side of the hall. The man dropped behind the railing. Harper caught Adrian as his knees weakened. "You have been shot. I noticed." That was not permission to make a joke. She lowered him against the wall. His hand pressed over the wound. Blood moved between his fingers. Harper pulled the torn fabric from her sleeve and pressed it against him. "Stay with me. I am here. Do not close your eyes." "I am not closing them." His voice sounded distant. Miles crossed the hallway, but another man appeared from the lower landing. He aimed toward them. Miles had no clear shot. Adrian tried to lift his weapon. His arm failed. Harper saw the pistol the first attacker had dropped several feet away. She moved before fear could stop her. Broken glass cut into her palm as she crawled toward it. "Harper," Adrian said. She reached the weapon and shoved it across the floor. Miles caught it. One shot filled the hall. The final attacker fell. Silence followed. Not true silence. The alarm had begun to sound again. Water ran through the security room. Someone shouted from the front entrance. But Harper heard only Adrian's breathing. She returned to him and pressed both hands against his wound. Miles knelt beside them. "Through and through," he said. "It missed the artery." Harper looked at him. "Are you certain?" "Yes." "You sound too calm. I am trying not to alarm you. It is not working." Adrian opened his eyes. "She is right." Harper looked down at him. "Stop talking." A faint smile touched his mouth. Outside engines approached. The backup team entered the house. A private doctor arrived within 20 minutes. He treated Adrian in the main bedroom while Miles secured the property and questioned the surviving attacker. Harper remained beside the bed. No one asked her to leave. Blood stained her hands and sleeves. A shallow cut crossed her palm where the glass had entered, but she barely noticed it. The doctor cleaned the wound in Adrian's shoulder. "The bullet passed through," he said. "No major vessel damage." Harper watched him stitch the torn skin. "Does he need a hospital?" "He needs imaging." "Then take him." Adrian opened his eyes. "No hospital." The doctor did not look surprised. Harper did. "You were shot. I am aware. You do not get to refuse medical care because hospitals make you uncomfortable. They make me visible. You already own half the private security in Boston. That does not make the emergency room secure." The doctor cleared his throat. "I brought portable imaging equipment. His lung is clear. He has lost blood, but he is stable." Harper looked at Adrian. "This is not over." "No. I meant the argument." "I know." The doctor finished the bandage. Adrian's skin was pale beneath the bedroom light. Harper took the chair beside him. Miles entered once the doctor left. His jacket had been replaced. A cut near his jaw had been cleaned. "We captured one alive," he said. Adrian's eyes sharpened. Who sent them Rourke? What did he want Harper alive? "You were secondary." Adrian's hand tightened against the blanket. Miles placed a phone and a small metal token on the bedside table. The attacker carried a message. Harper looked at the token. One side displayed an engraved number 12. Pier 12. Miles continued. "Rourke wants you to surrender control of the pier and withdraw your support from the Waterfront Union vote. He says if you refuse, he will keep sending men until someone takes her." Adrian's face became cold enough to frighten everyone in the room. Harper touched his wrist. Do not. He looked at her. Do not decide anything while you are bleeding. He sent men into my house. He wants you angry. He will not survive what I do next. That is exactly what he expects. Adrian tried to sit up. Pain crossed his face. Harper pressed one hand against his chest. Lie down. I need to speak to our people. You need to remain conscious. Miles glanced between them. Harper is right. Adrian looked at him. Miles continued without hesitation. Rourke wants you reckless. He believes she can control your decisions. She does not control me. Harper held his gaze. Not yet. A weak breath that might have been a laugh left him. Miles moved toward the door. I will secure the house and contact the council. Wait, Harper said. She reached into the pocket of her torn clothing and removed the drive from the security room. I copied the access logs before the system was destroyed. Miles took it carefully. What is on it? Derek Shaw's authorization manual overrides and the route the attackers used. There were also payment records linked to the maintenance program. Adrian looked at her. You went into the security room. I needed to restore the alarm. You were supposed to hide. I was supposed to survive. You could have been killed. So could you. The answer stopped him. Miles closed his hand around the drive. I will analyze it with Ethan. Adrian's expression darkened at the name. Harper looked at him. Do not start. I said nothing. Your face did. Miles left. Harper remained beside the bed. The house slowly settled around them. Broken glass was cleared. The alarm stopped. Morning had not yet arrived, but the sky outside the windows had begun to soften from black to deep blue. Adrian looked at Harper's torn sleeve. You should leave Boston. She stared at him. I can arrange a house anywhere you choose. New documents, protection, enough money to disappear. You are doing it again. Doing what? Deciding that removing me from your life is the same as protecting me. I almost watched you die, and I watched you take a bullet meant for me. I would do it again. That does not make this your decision. Adrian's jaw tightened. You do not understand what Rourke will do. Then explain it. He will follow you. He will threaten your mother. He will use anyone you trust. He will make you question every stranger and every unlocked door. Harper's fear returned, but she did not look away. And sending me away stops that. It makes you harder to find. It also leaves you here alone. That is not your concern. Harper rose from the chair. Do not say that. Adrian's expression shifted. She stepped closer to the bed. You do not get to tell me I am everything you cannot afford to lose and then decide your life is none of my concern. I am trying to keep you alive. No. You are trying to make the choice easier for yourself. His eyes narrowed. What choice? Whether loving me is worth the risk? The room became quiet. Harper reached for his hand. Adrian let her take it. Tell me the truth, she said. Not the version that sounds noble. Not the version that lets you decide for both of us. Adrian stared at their joined hands. When he spoke, his voice had lost all command. The truth is that I love you. Harper stopped breathing. Adrian looked at her. I loved you before I understood what I was doing. She said nothing. I knew when you were tired. I knew when you lied about being fine. I knew when you stopped leaving sugar beside my coffee because the doctor told me to change my diet. A faint bitterness entered his voice. I knew the days you called your mother and pretended not to be disappointed. I knew when you stayed late because you did not want to go home. I knew when you were angry and swallowed it before anyone could accuse you of being difficult. Harper's eyes filled. You noticed? I noticed everything. Then why did you let me believe I meant nothing? Because I knew exactly what seeing you would cost. Harper looked at the blood-stained bandage across his shoulder. And what did it cost? Everything I thought made me untouchable. The words broke something open inside her. For 11 months she had imagined what it would feel like to hear him say he cared. She had imagined warmth, relief, victory. She had never imagined fear would stand beside all of it. Harper lifted his hand to her cheek. "I love you too." Adrian closed his eyes. The admission seemed to hurt him more than the bullet. Harper continued, "But I will not disappear to make you feel safe." His eyes opened. "I cannot lose you. You cannot keep me by removing every choice I have. I do not know how to do this." "Yes, you do." Adrian looked at her. "You ask me. You tell me the truth. You let me decide what I can survive." He studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Stay." The word was barely louder than a breath. Harper leaned closer. "Ask properly." Something changed in his expression. Not anger, not authority. Humility. "Will you stay?" Harper kissed his forehead. "Yes." She remained beside him until the light outside turned gray. Miles returned shortly after sunrise with Ethan. Ethan stopped in the doorway when he saw Harper. His eyes moved over her torn sleeve, the cut on her palm, and the dried blood across her clothes. "Are you hurt?" "Not badly." Adrian watched the concern on Ethan's face. This time he said nothing. Miles placed the recovered drive on the table. We traced the payments. Adrian pushed himself higher against the pillows. Harper adjusted the support behind his shoulder before he could pretend the movement did not hurt. Miles opened a file. Derek Shaw received money through 4 shell companies. 3 belonged to men attending the Waterfront Council. "Rourke's allies," Adrian said. "Not exactly," Ethan replied. He placed a printed record beside the file. "They believed the money was financing an expansion into New Jersey. Rourke redirected it to pay Shaw purchase weapons and hire the men who entered this house." Harper looked through the records. "So he stole from his own partners." "Yes," Ethan said. "And they do not know. Not yet." Adrian's attention moved to her. Harper continued reading. The payments formed a clear pattern. Each shell company had transferred money within hours of a private council meeting. Rourke had used old allies as a private bank. "He expects you to attack him," Harper said. Adrian's face remained still. "He expects correctly." "No." She placed the papers on the bed. "He expects anger. He expects you to retaliate before anyone asks where he found the money to enter this house. He sent armed men for you, and he wants that to be the only fact you can see." Adrian looked at her. Harper pointed to the records. "He thinks I make you weak. You make me reckless." "Then stop being reckless." Ethan lowered his gaze to hide a reaction. Harper continued. "Do not kill him in a room where no one can see. Put him in front of the people he betrayed. Show them what he stole. Take away every alliance protecting him." Miles looked at Adrian. "She is right." Adrian ignored him. His eyes remained on Harper. "You want to stand in that room?" "Yes." "No." Harper's expression hardened. "You asked me to stay." "That does not mean I will place you in front of Rourke. He already knows who I am." "That is not an argument. It is the entire argument." Adrian looked away. Harper lowered her voice. "If I hide now, every person in your world learns the same thing. They learn that threatening me removes me from the board. They learn that I can be used to move you. I will not use you as bait. I am not asking you to." "What are you asking?" "To let me present the evidence I found." Adrian looked at the documents again. "You found the payment pattern. I also copied the access logs while men were searching your house. I am aware. Then stop treating me like the only thing I can contribute is fear." His expression changed. Harper stepped closer. I know what Rourke expects people to see when they look at me. An assistant. A woman you care about. A weakness. She placed one finger against the records. Let him keep believing that until I show the room exactly how he paid for tonight. Silence held for several seconds. Then Adrian looked at Miles. Call the council. Miles nodded. Today, before Rourke can move the money. Miles took out his phone. Adrian continued. Union leaders, shipping partners, security contractors. Every family with an interest in the eastern waterfront. And Rourke Adrian's expression became cold. Especially Rourke. Miles and Ethan left to prepare the meeting. Harper remained near the bed. Adrian watched her. You terrify me. She looked at him. Because I am going into the room, because I cannot order you not to. You could. You would ignore me. Yes. A faint smile touched his mouth. Then I am learning. Harper looked toward the wardrobe. Clothes from her apartment had been delivered during the night. One dark blue suit hung beside the door. She removed her torn shirt and cleaned the dried blood from her skin. When she returned, Adrian was standing near the window. His left arm remained close to his body beneath a fresh white shirt. The shoulder bandage created a slight rise beneath the fabric. Harper stopped. You are supposed to be resting. I have rested. You slept for 40 minutes. It was sufficient. It was not. Adrian reached for his jacket. Harper took it from him. You cannot move that arm. I can. You nearly fell putting on your shirt. I did not fall. You leaned against the wall. The wall was available. Harper helped him into the jacket carefully. Her hands smoothed the collar. Adrian watched her. You do not have to enter that room. Yes, I do. You could remain behind me. Harper looked up. I am not walking in behind you. His eyes searched hers. Then he offered his uninjured arm. Beside me, then. Harper took it. They left the bedroom together. Downstairs, Miles waited near the entrance. Ethan stood beside a secure case containing the copied records. The house still carried the damage from the attack. A cracked window had been covered with dark fabric. The library door leaned against the wall. Blood had been cleaned from the floor, but faint stains remained between the stones. Harper stopped near the broken bedroom panel visible above the staircase. Adrian followed her gaze. Do you regret staying? No. You should. Do you? He looked at her. No. Outside, the rain had begun again. 2 black cars waited beyond the gate. Miles opened the rear door. Adrian allowed Harper to enter first. She sat beside him as the vehicle moved away from the house and turned toward the waterfront. Boston passed beyond the glass. The city looked ordinary in the gray morning. People carried coffee along the sidewalks. Delivery trucks stopped beside restaurants. A woman walked a small dog beneath a red umbrella. Harper watched them disappear behind the car. Less than 12 hours earlier, she had believed the safest place in Boston was Adrian Vale's house. Now safety felt less like a place and more like information. Truth. Choice. The right to remain beside someone without standing beneath them. Adrian reached for her hand. Harper let him take it. Ahead, the Harbor Club rose above the water, its tall windows facing the docks Adrian had spent his entire life controlling. Inside, men who believed Harper Quinn was only his weakness were waiting to see her. She tightened her fingers around Adrian's. He looked at her once. Then the car stopped. Miles stepped out first and scanned the entrance of the Harbor Club. The building stood at the edge of the water, an old structure of red brick and dark stone that had survived fires, storms, and generations of men who believed Boston belonged to them. Rain struck the tall windows. Beyond the iron gates, cargo cranes rose over the harbor. Their lights burned through the gray morning like watchful eyes. Adrian opened the car door with his uninjured hand. Harper stepped onto the wet pavement beside him. Men in dark coats waited beneath the covered entrance. Some wore security badges. Others carried no identification at all. Every one of them recognized Adrian. Their attention shifted toward Harper. She felt the movement immediately. Curiosity, calculation, disbelief. These men had heard about the woman Nolan Rourke sent armed attackers to capture. They expected someone frightened, hidden, and dependent on Adrian's protection. Harper straightened the jacket of her dark blue suit. Adrian looked at her. "You can still leave." "No." His mouth tightened. "That was not an order." "I know." Harper touched his wrist. "That is why I answered." They entered together. The main dining hall occupied the second floor of the club. A long walnut table stretched beneath 3 brass chandeliers. Tall windows overlooked the docks, though the rain reduced the harbor to moving shadows. 20 people were already seated. Union leaders, shipping executives, private security contractors, political intermediaries, representatives from families whose names never appeared in corporate records but influenced every major decision along the Massachusetts waterfront. Conversation faded as Adrian crossed the room. Harper remained beside him. She recognized several faces from company files. Others she knew only from whispered conversations outside Adrian's office. At the far end of the table sat Nolan Rourke. He was broad, silver-haired, and dressed in a black suit with a red tie. His left hand rested beside a glass of water. A heavy gold ring caught the light when he moved his fingers. Rourke looked at Adrian's bandaged shoulder. Then he looked at Harper. His smile was slow. "So this is the famous weakness." Adrian stopped. The room became silent enough to hear rain against the windows. Harper spoke before Adrian could. "You must be the man who needed 6 armed employees to frighten one office coordinator." A few people around the table shifted. One man lowered his eyes to hide a smile. Rourke's expression remained pleasant, but his fingers stopped moving. "I expected someone quieter. You expected someone easier." Adrian glanced at Harper. There was no warning in his eyes, only approval. Miles moved toward the wall near the entrance. Ethan carried the secure case to an empty chair beside Harper. Adrian pulled out the chair at his right. Harper did not sit. Neither did he. Rourke looked around the room. "Are we here to discuss business, or has Vale called us together to introduce his latest personal distraction?" Adrian placed his uninjured hand against the table. "We are here because you sent armed men into my home." Rourke lifted his glass. "That sounds like a private problem. You used money stolen from people in this room." The glass paused near Rourke's mouth. Several faces turned toward him. Rourke lowered it carefully. "An accusation should come with evidence." "It does," Harper said. She opened the secure case. Rourke looked at her as though she had spoken out of turn. Harper removed 6 folders and placed them along the table. Each bore the name of a different company. 3 months ago, Rourke Freight announced an expansion into New Jersey, she said. Several people in this room invested in that expansion. A shipping contractor named Victor Sloan opened the folder nearest him. His brows drew together. Harper continued. "The expansion never existed. The warehouse contracts were false. The equipment purchases were routed through shell companies. The money was transferred to Derek Shaw, who installed unauthorized access software inside Vale Harbor Systems and Mr. Vale's residence." Rourke leaned back. "You expect these people to believe an assistant understands international freight accounts?" Harper looked at him. "I expect them to understand their own bank statements." Sloan turned a page. The man seated beside him reached for another folder. Rourke's smile faded. Harper moved around the table slowly. She had spent years making herself small in rooms filled with powerful people. She had lowered her voice, avoided attention, and allowed men with larger titles to repeat her ideas as their own. That morning she did none of those things. Each payment was divided among 4 companies, she said. The amounts were small enough to avoid automatic review. Every transfer occurred within 12 hours of a private waterfront council meeting. A union leader named Samuel Pike adjusted his glasses. These accounts belong to companies Rourke controls. Some of them, Harper said. 3 belong to his partners. Pike looked toward Rourke. Partners who were told the money was being used for new terminals. Rourke's voice hardened. You have no proof those records came from my organization. Ethan opened his laptop. I do. Rourke looked at him. And you are Ethan Cole, security systems analyst for Vale Harbor Group, a technician, the technician who found the program your contractor buried in Adrian Vale's house. Ethan connected the laptop to the screen behind the table. Security records appeared. Dates, times, access credentials, manual overrides. The final entries showed Derek Shaw's authorization opening the rear gate and disabling the internal alarms shortly before the attack. Ethan enlarged the payment record. This account paid Shaw 48 hours before the home invasion. The funds came through Rourke Coastal Development. Rourke turned toward a thin man seated near the middle of the table. Martin. Martin Bell looked down at the account documents in front of him. You told me this payment secured equipment in Newark. Rourke's expression sharpened. We can discuss that privately. You used my company to pay men who attacked Vale's house. Do not confuse a financial entry with intent. Harper placed another photograph on the table. It showed Derek Shaw entering a warehouse owned by Rourke Freight. The date was visible in the corner. 3 days before the attack. The surviving gunman identified that warehouse as the location where the team received its instructions, Harper said. Rourke looked at Adrian. You brought a frightened employee into this room and taught her to read a script. Harper felt Adrian's anger beside her. She did not need him to answer. I wrote the script, she said. Rourke's gaze returned to her. You believe standing beside him makes you powerful? No. Harper rested both hands on the table. I believe knowing where you hid the money makes you vulnerable. The room shifted. Not dramatically. No one shouted. No one declared loyalty. Power in rooms like this rarely moved through speeches. It moved through silence, through men who stopped defending someone, through partners who began closing folders, through bodyguards who looked toward new employers. Victor Sloan pushed the financial records away from himself. My company will not cover Rourke Freight's losses. Samuel Pike nodded. The union vote proceeds without Rourke representation. Martin Bell removed the gold pin from his lapel and placed it on the table. My trucks leave his routes by midnight. Rourke's face became red. You think Vale is any different from me? No one answered. Rourke stood. His chair scraped across the floor. He controls your contracts, your ports, your security. He hides behind a legitimate company while ordering the same violence you pretend to condemn. Adrian remained calm. I have never stolen from the people at this table. You have taken more than money. Yes. The simple admission unsettled the room. Adrian continued. But when I make an enemy, he knows my name. Rourke's hand moved beneath his jacket. Harper saw it first. She stepped back. Miles moved from the wall. 2 of Rourke's own former allies rose from their chairs and moved away from him. Rourke drew a pistol. Miles reached him before he could raise it. He twisted Rourke's wrist and drove him against the table. The weapon struck the floor. Adrian did not move. Miles forced Rourke's arms behind his back. Rourke stared at Harper. This does not end because you found a few numbers. Harper held his gaze. It ended when the people you betrayed saw them. Sirens approached outside. Rourke looked toward the windows. For the first time, genuine fear crossed his face. Adrian glanced at Samuel Pike. Pike adjusted his cuff. The state police received an anonymous package this morning. Weapons records. Extortion payments. names connected to 3 missing dock workers. Rourke struggled against smiles. "You called the police into our business?" Knopike said. "You brought them in when you left evidence everywhere." Officers entered the hall below. Miles handed Rourke's weapon to a member of his security team. The doors opened. Rourke was led from the room without another word. No one tried to stop it. Rain continued striking the windows. The chair at the far end of the table remained empty. Adrian looked around the room. Pier 12 remains under Vale Harbor control. Existing contracts will be honored. Any company affected by Rourke's theft will receive full access to the recovered financial records. Victor Sloan looked at Harper, who identified the transfer pattern. "She did," Adrian said. Harper felt every face turn toward her again. This time she did not wish to disappear. Adrian continued. "Harper Quinn is under my protection." Her eyes moved to him. He paused. The old Adrian might have stopped there. He might have defined her position through his name, his power, and his willingness to destroy anyone who touched her. Instead, he looked directly at her. "She also stands in this room by her own decision." The distinction was small enough that some people might not understand it. Harper did. Adrian faced the table again. "Any action against her is an action against Vale Harbor Group. Not because she belongs to me." His voice lowered. "Because she has earned a position inside this organization, and because she has the right to decide where she stands." Harper's throat tightened. Rourke had called her Adrian's weakness. Adrian had answered by giving the room no claim over her at all. The meeting ended 40 minutes later. People left in small groups, speaking quietly into phones. Alliances were already shifting. Trucks would be rerouted. Contracts would be rewritten. Men who had depended on Rourke would deny ever trusting him. Harper closed the secure case. Ethan unplugged his laptop. "You were good in there," he said. "My hands were shaking. They stopped after the first sentence. I stopped noticing." Adrian approached them. Ethan straightened. For several seconds, the two men looked at each other. Harper expected tension. Adrian extended his hand. "You protected her when my people failed." Ethan glanced at the offered hand before taking it. "I did my job. You also found the breach. Harper found the original credential." Adrian looked at her. "I know." Ethan released his hand. "Am I still banned from the executive floor?" Adrian's expression remained serious. "Your access is restored." That almost sounded like an apology. "Do not make me reconsider." Ethan smiled. Harper did too. Adrian noticed. He looked at Ethan. Then he exhaled and accepted it. 2 days later, Harper returned to Vale Harbor headquarters. The executive floor looked exactly as it had before. Dark stone, glass walls, quiet voices. Her desk still stood inside Adrian's office. A fresh maple oat latte waited beside the keyboard. Harper placed a cardboard box on the desk. Adrian looked up. "What is that?" "My resignation." The color left his face so quickly that Harper almost regretted the phrasing. He rose from his chair. "No." She stared at him. "No, you are not leaving. You do not control my employment. I am aware." You answered very quickly for someone who is aware. Adrian came around the desk. "If this is because of the attack, I can change the security structure. It is not because of the attack. If it is because of us, I will remove myself from every decision involving your position. You cannot remove yourself from your own company. I can remove everyone else." Harper folded her arms. "That is not how corporate governance works. It can be. Adrian." He stopped. For the first time since she had known him, he looked uncertain rather than dangerous. Harper allowed the silence to last 1 moment longer. Then she removed a second document from the box. The board approved this yesterday. Adrian took it. Harper watched him read. The contract appointed her Director of Strategic Operations. She would manage emergency planning systems coordination and waterfront risk analysis. She would report to the Operations Committee rather than directly to Adrian. Her salary had doubled. Her office would be across the hall. Adrian read the final page twice. You are moving across the hall. Yes, that is unnecessary. It prevents a conflict of interest. You survived 11 months outside my office. You survived too. I was an idiot for 11 months. That is not a business argument. It is the strongest argument I have. Harper smiled. Adrian set the contract down. You are staying. I am staying. His shoulders relaxed. She stepped closer. But I will not remain your assistant. You were never only my assistant. You allowed everyone to treat me like one. His expression tightened. I know. And now they will answer to you. Harper touched the front of his jacket. Some of them will hate that. They are welcome to resign. She laughed softly. Adrian lowered his head and kissed her. The kiss was gentle. No emergency alarms, no gunfire, no one waiting beyond the door. Only the quiet office and the city beyond the windows. Later that afternoon, Harper packed the last items from her old desk. Ethan appeared near the doorway carrying an empty file box. I heard you were promoted. News moves quickly. Adrian owns a communications company. He does not own the entire internet. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Are you certain Harper placed a framed photograph of her mother in the box? Ethan leaned against the desk. I suppose I never had much of a chance. Harper looked at him. You gave me something important. Coffee. That too. She smiled. You reminded me what it felt like when someone made an effort. Ethan nodded slowly. Make sure he keeps making one. Harper glanced through the glass. Adrian stood inside his office reading a document. He looked up at the exact moment she turned toward him. He will, she said. Several weeks passed. The wounds in Adrian's shoulder healed. Rourke remained in custody while his organization collapsed around him. His shipping companies were divided among creditors. His former partners cooperated with investigators in exchange for protection. Pier 12 remained open. Harper moved into her new office. The room was smaller than Adrian's, but brighter. She placed her mother's photograph on the shelf, brought in a green chair that was comfortable rather than impressive, and kept peppermint tea in the cabinet. On a cold Thursday morning, Harper stood at the head of the executive conference table. A security plan filled the screen behind her. Senior directors listened as she explained new access rules for every Vale Harbor terminal. No shared credentials, no predictable guard rotations, no contractor access without independent verification. Every department would receive a separate emergency route. Every warning would be sent through 2 secure channels. No one interrupted her. When questions came, they were directed to her. Adrian sat halfway down the table. He did not answer for her. He did not correct her. He did not attempt to control the room on her behalf. He simply listened. When the meeting ended, the executives gathered their files and left. Harper closed her laptop. Adrian remained in his chair. You stared through the entire presentation. I listened. You were staring. I can do both. She walked toward him. For nearly a year, you barely looked at me. I looked. You hid it well. Adrian rose. I convinced myself I could survive without truly seeing you. Harper stopped in front of him. And now you are the first thing I see when I enter a room. She placed one hand against his chest. That sounds dangerously close to dependence. It is. Does that frighten you? Adrian looked through the windows at Boston Harbor. The city stretched beneath a pale winter sky. Ships moved between the docks. Cars crossed the bridge. Thousands of people lived their lives without knowing how close the waterfront had come to war. Then Adrian looked at Harper. Every day. Good. His eyebrow lifted. Harper smiled. It means you finally understand what it costs to love someone without controlling them. Adrian's hand settled at her waist. I am still learning. You are. I dislike how often you say that. You will survive. I nearly did not. Harper touched the healed scar beneath his shoulder. But you did. He bent and kissed her. Outside, the harbor lights began to glow as afternoon faded into evening. For 11 months, Harper Quinn had worked 10 feet from Adrian Vale's door. She had solved his problems, protected his empire, and loved him in silence while he pretended not to see her. Another man had made her laugh. That laugh had forced Adrian to open his eyes. But his attention had never created Harper's worth. She had always been intelligent. She had always been brave. She had always deserved a place in the room. The difference was that she no longer waited for someone else to recognize it. When Harper left the conference room, Adrian walked beside her. Not ahead. Not behind. Beside her. And when the executive floor turned to watch them pass, Harper did not lower her eyes. She had spent most of her life believing that taking up less space would make everything easier. Now the entire city knew her name. More importantly, Harper had finally learned to say it for herself.